and they came for my identical twin sister. And so when they came, the first thing I was like, what? Right. Who?
So it caught you off guard when
came? Yes, it was very caught off guard. And I remember getting a call when I was at work, and they were saying somebody came to get your sister, but it wasn't the police. It looks like, city police. It looks like it might be a little bit bigger than that. And so I was like, who? So I went through the whole day not knowing where she was or anything like that. And then when she was released, she was like, it's the feds that came to get her. And so it was very scary. And then they don't tell you a lot of things. All you hear and that's why I think a lot of people say, oh my God, when the feds come, it's 99% you're going to prison.
Most definitely. They don't play. They big boys.
Yes, because the first thing that they do is your lawyer talks to you. Because I went to the lawyer before she went to the lawyer, the court assigned lawyer. And I said to him, what's going on? And the first thing they talk about is she got a plea, but you're trying to figure out plea to what?
Right.
What are the charges? So I didn't understand any of that. I just knew that very quickly she was going through court, and then they said, okay, she'll be in trial. The trial will be 3 days. And then next thing I know, I get a call from the lawyer saying, well, they found her guilty and they took her into custody. And then I'm like, okay.
You didn't go with her to court?
I could not go to the trial because during the process of her going back and forth to the court for different reasons, I had taken so many days off by the time it was time for trial. Unless I was subpoenaed, I couldn't take any more days off.
So that had to have been kind of disheartening, because that's your identical, not only your sister, but your identical twin.
Yes, it was very, very difficult because, she would call me in between. And even the last moments when the last day of trial, when she was saying to me, the jury was still out, but I think she was like, I'm gonna call you back because I think they're gonna let us go home for the day because they're still deliberating.
Okay.
And so I never got that call back. The next call was the lawyer saying he was just straightforward, like they found her guilty, they remanded her in custody, and that was the end.
Wow. So what was she charged with?
Well, I don't want to, because I'll let her talk about those charges and stuff like that. But it was quite a few. It was some charges, some white collar, so they weren't very serious. If you want to go there, they weren't violent charges. I'll say that. But I'll let her tell her story on that part. But the next thing I know, we were waiting for the sentencing phase. And I didn't even understand that because the lawyer wasn't communicating. Like, we didn't even know. I didn't understand the pre-sentencing report.
So where did this lawyer come from? Who hired this lawyer?
He was court appointed.
He was court appointed.
Yes, he was court appointed attorney. And so during the sentencing phase, they do what is called a pre-sentencing report.
Right.
And they weren't explaining that. So when we went in court, we were still at a loss. Like, so what is she looking at? And so I just remember her lawyer and the U.S. attorney talking back and forth and saying this amount of time. They were saying 10 years. Her lawyer was saying 7. Judge Jackson was saying, okay, maybe in the 5-year range, but he just went in between, and he said 100 months.
Oh yeah, because
so they do months.
Yeah, they do months. Yeah, they do months.
So he said months. I didn't know what that meant. So I remember because when the federal agents, they're not in police uniform, they're in regular dress clothes. So I just remember them taking her out of the courtroom, and I'm looking around like, so what does 100 months mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? And so nobody never even explained it. So I had to kind of calculate. I said, oh my God, it's close to 8 years.
So she was sentenced to that time. So that's how you became a activist.
Yeah, because what happened is her attorney said, so what do you want me to do with this paperwork? Do you want to throw it away, or do you want? I was like, no, give it to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I was like, give it to me. And so I took the paperwork and went in my office. And I think for a year straight, I was just reading through every piece of paper, trying to figure out how this happened and where we went to court and what they were saying back and forth. And so I just self-educated myself.
Well, so within the process of you self-educating yourself, you found it intriguing, or you found that it was something that you were like, hold on now, like what was turning for you to make you say, it's something that I want to start looking into?
It was like, they don't tell you everything. Like, I didn't understand the charges. So it made it, because it psychologically affected me. I was traumatized. I was traumatized when she called and then called back. And then next thing you know, she was taken in custody. So I think for about the first 3 to 4 years of her incarceration, I had nightmares of running down to the court trying to catch her before she was taken into custody. So from there, I had anxiety and depression, and I never had that in my life. So it was psychological effect. And so I wanted to understand the charges. I wanted to understand the process. I wanted to understand, was the lawyer being honest? What was the U.S. attorney saying? So I started learning that process, because I was like, I never want someone to feel this again. This is horrible. This was a nightmare, So I didn't still say at that time I was an activist. I just started going on Facebook. I started going on Facebook and I started talking about, like, this is an injustice. They didn't explain the charge. I just started talking from there.
Okay. So you just went on Facebook and you just started stating your reality as it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it just kind of
then turned into activism.
Right.
Because people start saying, you're speaking up for your sister. And I didn't know that, because nobody even knew when it was going on. Nobody knew about it.
Okay.
So when I started talking about it, next thing I know is when people ask you questions, you got to understand the law. You got to understand what this charge mean. You got to understand what a pre-sentence. I started reading to understand what did the pre-sentence mean, and then they had these points at the end,
system, right?
And that's where it puts you in sentencing guidelines. So I wanted to understand, like, why were they adding these points for this and that? So that's when the activism started.
So now let's stay right there when you were saying that you were on Facebook and you were just stating your reality and people were listening. Did anybody ever reach out to you, or did you ever think that it was not only your sister's story and your story, but somebody else's story too?
Not at that time. Okay. I didn't start realizing it was other people's story until my inbox started blowing up and saying, my sister just went through this, or my brother. And then it's a lot of fathers going through, like in the federal system, they have a lot of older men that's like in their 50s and 60s with 20-year sentence, 25. So they start saying, can you advocate for my dad like you're advocating for your sister? So I started saying, okay, well, what's his charge? And then it started coming, did he plead guilty or did he go to trial? And then it just started going from there. And so they would send me the paperwork. I would read through it, and just more and more understanding came from that.
So when they send you the paperwork, what do you, after you read it and you understand everything as far as the case is concerned, what is the next step after that?
So you then decide, like, if they have any other options legally.
Okay.
Or oftentimes, a lot of times, just speaking out about it and getting the support of other citizens bringing awareness is what can sometimes dismiss a case. Because a lot of times, either they're maybe not guilty or over sentenced, because it's for the prosecutor office, it's not emotional. It's about, they need convictions.
Right.
That's their job. So it became more, okay, so what's the next step? So a lot of times what I would do is reach out to the prosecutor. People don't understand. Prosecutors have a lot of power.
They do.
They have a lot of power. And these, the ones that are state elect, these are the people we don't go out and vote, and sometimes are just kind of elected from us not voting. But these are the people that start the process of your dad and brothers going into the system. And then they have the power that if you find out something in the case, they can pull it back up and say, okay, we're going to send this back to court. And if they write a recommendation saying that they're going to release them, the judge would release them.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny that you said that. Well, it's not funny, actually, because I didn't know until like maybe a year or two ago that we actually can vote for the Commonwealth of Attorney.
Yes.
So, and they don't put it out there for us to know.
No.
Because it's like they want who they want in the seat, because
exactly,
they control, like you said, have control of the city, basically.
Yeah. I learned that. I supported Amina Mathena, I supported her during her run for the Commonwealth Attorney Office. And it was really not intentional. It was really me advocating about a case. And I said, what I'm going to do is while we have these Commonwealth attorneys running, let me send out an email and ask them about this case.
Right.
Once we went out into the city of Norfolk at that time, we were finding out a lot of people didn't even know that it was anything was going on. They was like, oh, we're supposed to get out and vote. What day are you where for what? And I'm like, this is one of the most important, this is one of the most important positions, because this determines if your brothers or family members or dads or somebody is child or yourself, you know, because anybody can take a warrant out. You know, I don't know if people understand that. Anybody can take a warrant out. But what matters is when they take it out, can that prosecutor look at it and say, I'm not going to entertain this, or I see that there are some issues with this, so I'm not going to, do this or question it. So I was really, doing the city of Norfolk. I was kind of disappointed, because I felt that, number one, not 100% because Amina was a Black woman, but city of Norfolk is predominantly Black city.
Right.
And so I felt that there wasn't a lot of support toward her to even hear her stance, to see if she, if we want to support her. Because when I heard her stance and seen her record, I was like, this is what we need to change the game of the way people are charged and sentenced.
Right. But it could be one of two things. One, it could be that, a lot of people didn't know that she was actually running, or that they could actually go out and vote, right?
Yes.
There was actually even an election even going on. And then two, a lot of people, as we were talking prior to the episode, that a lot of people say they're going to do something, but there's not a lot of doers out here.
That is correct. And that's why I say to citizens, don't just listen to what they say, go do the work. This is public information. When you have a Commonwealth like this race, and every city has a race every 4 years, go pull their cases up. That's public information. Take a look at the statistics of how they're convicting people. How do they go about charging? Because the thing is, there's no marriage between the police and the prosecutor. The prosecutors for the public, they're for us.
That's right.
And so what you want to make sure is, just because the police says there's a charge, doesn't mean the prosecutor's supposed to always say, okay, well, I don't really see it, but I'm a prosecutor anyway. They're supposed to review it and say, well, I don't necessarily agree with this, and I might need to question this, so I might not charge them on this one. So,
So now, being that you are doing activism now, like, what type of sacrifices, if you can name a few, that you are that you actually do on a daily?
Oh my God. My biggest sacrifice is my mental health. My mental health. I don't sleep very much.
Wow.
I think I haven't slept since 2015. And that's when you went through the federal justice system because of my sister. And so you're always up throughout the night trying to think, trying to read, because when it comes to legal paperwork, what you may see this time, you may not understand it, but if you read it 2, 3 or more times, you may understand. Right. So even in that, I tell some of my lawyer associates, I said, no good lawyer works 9 to 5. Right. A good lawyer's always working, and you don't look at what makes sense. You look at that part that something doesn't make sense, because these are human. Somebody made a mistake.
That's right.
So sometimes I tell them, don't necessarily look for your client's guilt or innocence. Look for that constitutional violation, because no one can override a constitutional violation. So I encourage them to do that. Go through every part, communicate with the prosecutor. Just because the prosecutor said doesn't mean that's what it is. But if you don't talk to them, what are they going to do? They're going to do their job. Yeah. So, that's one of my biggest sacrifices is my mental health and sleep. Just wanted, because sometimes I say to myself, I wish I could just have a normal life and get up and just not worry about anyone and have fun and go do this and travel and all this and that. But when you see families and mothers' heart broken, you can't, you have to figure a way out. Like, how can I speak to this prosecutor? How can I get the support of the citizens behind me, which is one of the most difficult things. It's difficult to get citizens to support, because if they never went through it, it's very difficult for them to understand.
And then you said a mouthful there. And also too, if it hasn't been placed on their doorstep,
yes,
it's like a lot of people don't want to. It's like, oh, have anything to do with me, so I don't want to entertain it.
Yes,
but we all have to realize that it may not be us, but it can be our family, friend, or somebody that may have to walk that walk one day.
Right. Well, I feel like we all have a responsibility, even if we don't know that person. Mm-hmm. If we know that there's an injustice, we have a responsibility as a human being to react, because it could either, it could be you. I always keep in mind, I had a really good friend that I met that did, I think she did 12 years in the federal system. And she did the 12 years, not because she was guilty, but because she refused to testify against someone.
Okay.
And so she always used to tell me, she said, Marva, always remember this. She said, it's only grace that prevents some people from entering into the justice system. It's not that you necessarily have to do something. It could be just association or your refusal to say something to help get a conviction. They can say, okay, well, we'll charge you.
And
so she always...
especially with the feds.
Yes.
You can get conspiracy quick. And
yes.
It's like 99%. You're going down. Exactly.
So she always tell me grace. So I tell people that, remember, it's only grace. My sister was 37 years old, so I mean, that's late in age. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So
in her prime.
Yeah, exactly. So I tell them, just because it never hit your door, don't let that be your reason. Say, well, it don't have anything to do with me. But you see your neighbor, your friend, your brother, or even something on TV, like we did George Floyd. We all got involved. We did. And look what changed because of that. Yeah, we got involved. We expressed that we were tired of sometimes it seeming like a police officer may get away with it. And I understand that police officers do have a difficult job to determine whether they should react a certain way or not. But in this case, to sit on your neck for a long time was just horrible to watch this man die. But it was our unity together that caused them to say that we can't just let this go. Mm-hmm. And so I tell people there's unity. When we come together, there's strength in unity. They will change if we demand change. That's right. And you don't have to tear up a building. You don't have to stand in front of them. We can go in a courtroom and sit down together and say, can we talk to you, Your Honor, and present this to you? We can collectively do that.
Right. We have a question, Ms. Go-Getter?
Yes, we do. Okay. One of the questions was, what was your sister's charge? But I know you didn't mention it. Is there a reason why you can't mention her charge?
Well, that's part of her story, and we did make an agreement that when she wants to tell that on her platform, that she could do that, and I'm going to respect that.
Okay. So, okay, because the question was, were you told not to talk? Because is it public information that it could be looked up? But another question was, how long? You said she got 8 years, mm-hmm. And was this recently? Because you mentioned something in February. Was it this year?
No, this was 6 years ago. 6 years ago. So she's out.
Okay, so she's out now.
Yes.
Okay, but right now you're still fighting. So what have you actually done, like with your activism? What have you actually done to like help her or to actually help other people? Like,
well,
there's something specific that you did, or some kind of legislative law that you helped put in place?
Well, what I did in her case, she was, mm-hmm. when the corona happened, what I did is I reached out to legislatures like Tim Kaine, Donna McEachern I reached out to them, and they played a big part in assisting her in getting approved for the home confinement when they were releasing people. So she was approved for that. And then she did also was granted the compassionate release. So she received that, and she was released a year ago. So she's been out for a little bit over a year now.
So has she joined your team in doing activism to help other people?
She does things she does her platform separately, and that's why I say I let her tell her story or whatever she wants to talk about with that in particular. But she's not the only person I work with. I assisted another person, Lisa Crow. She was on my page. Her and I are still friends. We actually became really good friends, but she was incarcerated at that same time, and she had stage 4 cancer. And she was near where we thought that she was likely going to pass in prison. And so we advocated along with Congressman Danny Davis in Illinois. He assisted us. And also we had the support of she had a lot of support all over the world. And what we would do is we would write letters and call the BOP. I mean, we really, really pushed. And I think about 7 months, they released her June 23rd, 2020. And since she's gotten out and been able to get the appropriate care, Lisa has actually, the majority of her cancer is gone. When they thought that when she was in there that she didn't have, and she didn't have very long to live. Her oxygen level was dropping. It was really, really bad. I mean, I was afraid for her to die in there. So what I was saying is, let's help you get out to die out here, you know, not around family, not in there. But she is such a fighter. She got out and got a great doctor in Kentucky where she is. And he really worked, and she still has cancer, but it's almost gone. So she fought that and Corona. So she got Corona while she was out, fought that, made it through. I tell her all the time, she's my superwoman. She is. Like she is amazing. So her and I actually, from advocating, which you know, I don't normally become friends with people, but I think because she was fighting for her life, we end up becoming very attached to each other, and we talk or text almost every day.
So how did she get in contact with you?
She was actually incarcerated at the same federal prison as my sister. Okay. And at the time I was being an activist, some people didn't know that that was my sister. She used to hear them, you know, talking about me because I used to really be going hard on there. And then somebody told Lisa to tell me about her, you know, situation. So Lisa wrote me a letter. Oh, wow. So she wrote me a letter and she was telling me all this stuff. And from there, I posted a picture of her. And I posted that picture, and her picture went viral in 24 hours. Everybody wanted to know.
That was nobody but God, like orchestrating that whole thing. Like even down to you guys building a relationship. Yeah. Till today. Yeah. So we're still friends, and she just celebrated her birthday yesterday, and I was so happy because I didn't think, and I don't know if Lisa even knew she was going to live this long, and she's still going. She's still fighting. She's doing very well. So
that's awesome. Maybe that's what she needed to get out.
Yeah. So I think, of course, we know it's a difference in medical treatment, incarceration. But even with that, believe it or not, I got so much pushback from people. You know, people were saying, well, she shouldn't, you know, she committed a crime, so whatever happened. I'm like, and I had to say with her case, I was like, a mistake doesn't mean that you don't deserve to live. You know, she has a right to live. And so, you know, every time I tell the story, because I did another case, Stephen Skinner's case in Tennessee, charged with a murder that was charged in a federal case. The feds turned around and let the state of Tennessee charge him with the same murder. I just thought that was insane. So I don't know how that happened, but I advocated his case. And so what you have to do with people is you have to humanize them. That's right. Because people mindset is, well, they committed a crime, so what are we fighting for them for? That does not take away that they're human. You know, and then it doesn't take away that if it were you, would you want your rights to be violated? Would you want to be treated a certain way? So I often have to sometimes, and I refrain from the going back and forth, right? But you make a statement to bring it in to say, so because she made a mistake, does that mean she deserves to die and not be properly treated? And a lot of times they turn their perception where they like, okay, if it was me, I wouldn't want to be treated like that. Right.
Yeah, because especially if they, you know, because I'm a firm believer, if you committed a crime, do the time. But when it's excessive or when your rights have been violated, then we got to look at that. Exactly. Because we're no good as you out here committing a crime or taking somebody's life, then we turn around and give you like life. Absolutely. It doesn't make sense. But bring me up to date on the Taj case.
Okay, so I know a lot of people have seen me for the last 19 months on and off, advocating for Taj Haskins. So the issue with his case is there were body cam that we were fighting for, I think it took me 17 months to get it, because he was very adamant from the beginning. He was like, there's a body cam that showed different, because when I would read the investigator notes made it seem like, oh, we saw this drug deal happen. We pulled in and arrested them immediately. And he was so adamant. That's why I tell people, just because somebody is arrested, don't that's the person you want to listen to, because they were there. So they can tell us what happened. Let's not just assume because of what's in writing, because it could be a little just straight. Yeah, it could just be summarized to what they want to put in there. And so he's so adamant about this body cam. And so I would ask his attorneys to get it. And they asked the prosecutor. The prosecutor said there was no body cam, but he was adamant. He said, I know it was because, one of the police officers said, we're recording this and this and this and that. So I reached out to Norfolk Police Department, and I requested an internal investigation. And so from there, I think I did that in November 2020, and around February or March, I believe. I can't remember whether it was late February or early March, but around that time, they said, okay, it's a body cam.
You had a body cam the whole the damn time.
So they said it's a body cam. So they turned the body cam over to the attorney that was Taj attorney. And then I went up there, looked at the body cam, and I just wanted to sit down with the Commonwealth Department and ask them to explain certain things, because I had an issue with why the police got in his car and left, and why there was a police officer leaning in the passenger side of the car. So I wanted some answers to help me to understand why that happened, because anytime you say you found something in a vehicle and there's a body cam, why didn't you guys keep the body cam on for that situation? So there's no integrity issue.
Right. Okay. So now let's bring him up to speed, because a lot of people may not know about this case. So he was charged with drugs. They ambushed him.
They stopped him on Poplar Hall, I believe it's called, by Military Circle, in the middle of traffic. So I was like, you don't stop someone in the middle. You make sure you get to a safe area then. Yeah, because you're putting citizens in danger. Right. So they actually stopped in the middle in front of him, which is why I think they didn't want the body cam to come out. And they jumped out out of the van, yelling and screaming, would have terrified me. And, jumped on and put him on the ground. One of the police officers was yelling it was a gun, that he threw a gun. It was a cell phone. How many times have we seen that problem that cost a lot of, Black men to die because they're thinking it's a gun and it's a phone. So he's like, it's a gun. And then he's like, no, it's a phone. It's a phone. It's a phone. So, and so I questioned them on that. I just wanted to sit and talk to them about that to make sure that he was being given his due process and there wasn't any violation to get a conviction. And the Commonwealth office in Norfolk has consistently, they refuse to sit down and have a conversation, which is unheard of, because this is the first time I had that issue. Right.
So now, were his attorneys able to have a conversation with them? Like, especially the leading prosecutor on his case, when the defense attorney, did they get all of the emotional discovery evidence from them? You can look at it and see, like, well, why, or look at it to see, because when I looked at it, I saw that 1, they did ambush him or jump out the car. 2, he had his kids
in the car. Correct.
And they pulled off with his
kids in the car. Yeah.
So I've never seen a case where feds or state will take your car from the scene, literally drive your car. I've seen them put the car on a tow and have, like that.
Yeah.
But all of that, I think, looking back at all of that, a lot of stuff wasn't, all of their T's weren't crossed and I's.
I agree. Because that's what I said. Why leave the scene if whatever issue that they felt, which I don't know because I've yet to get an answer, why not secure it by bringing a tow truck to tow the vehicle or pull the vehicle to the side, but you leave and then they never come back to where the body camera was able to see what was going on. It was parked somewhere else. So
Okay, so they could have planted the drugs in the car.
Yes, and that's the question.
One leaned in the car, and then the car left with the 2 kids.
Yeah, so we still kind of. I wish they would give me a conversation on that. And of course, I don't know if you saw the original Black Panther Party went with me up there about a week ago, I believe. It was about a week ago because Mike Payne did reach out to me again. Actually, yesterday, he's like, Queen, have they responded to you? Because if not, we're going to have to go back up there. But we went up there because he wanted to ask them, why can't you guys just sit down and talk to her and give her answers? They were claiming nobody was there and all that, which I don't believe it, but that's what they was telling. But I still have not gotten a response from it.
I get nobody was there, but nobody has reached out to set an appointment or anything.
No, and as citizens, we have a right. I mean, that's pretty much what some of the Commonwealth prospects were running their campaign on is the principle of Black Lives Matter, and that if there's an issue, the citizen has the right to come and sit and talk with them. So I was hoping that with that being said, there shouldn't be a problem with me sitting down and discuss it and you giving me a response back, so it still never happened.
So, and then for them to hold the body cam for 17 months, it's one of those things where they really don't have anything on you, but they want to hold you as long as they can.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I don't understand, that I wish legislator here in Virginia would change. Because, of course, when you sit in jail, for months and months and months, it kind of breaks you mentally.
Right.
And so people would tend to just say, you know what, just to be done with this, I'll plea out so this could be over, instead of making sure that they have been afforded the right to due process and it's done fairly, So I really wish that Virginia legislator would change the way that they do the bond here and when they deny, because down here they deny for drug charges and things like that. And where I'm from in Tennessee, I mean, everyone gets a bond unless it's a death penalty case. So.
And I think that's what it is too, like here in Virginia, being that we are Commonwealth.
Yeah.
A lot of the laws are old. They're ancient. And in order for, it to work for us, it has to be revised.
Yes.
Or changed, completely. But so how is he doing? Is he doing okay?
No. No, he's not doing okay. He's not doing okay. He wants this case to be resolved. I really respected Amina a lot because once the race was over for Commonwealth, I can't say that she did the thing she said, because she called me the next morning and she was like, you know what, I want to take on Taj's case. And so she is now the leading attorney on his case.
That's
so that's why I was like, Norfolk, what were you thinking? Like, this is a person who really cares deeply for the people. She's been, I think she was beat up a little bit because it kept being said, well, she's a defense attorney. She's not a prosecutor. She's never been a prosecutor. But I'm like, she understands it because she deals with the prosecutor. So what she wants to do is make sure that you're being charged and done fairly.
Right.
She's not saying when I'm getting there, I'm going to let everybody out, because she can't do that.
Right.
But she can make sure that it's a fair process, which is what it's supposed to be anyway.
Yeah. When we actually talked to her, I definitely got that vibe from her. She basically said just what you said. If you do the crime, basically do the time, but we're going to make sure that it fits.
Yes, it fits.
It fits. And then going back to what you were saying about drug charges, not getting bonds, it's ludicrous, because you have someone who has a drug charge, whether they're a repeat offender or not, you don't give them bond, but you give someone who is stalking or something with their spouse, and then you let them out, and then they turn around and take this person's life. Yeah,
and I even saw a case a few months ago. It was a Norfolk Newport News police officer. I believe that was involved in some type of murder case or something. It caught my attention because he got a bond. So, and that was during Taj time. So I said, well, what's the difference? Why did he get a bond and he can't get a bond? But I think it's just, to me, it's a method of breaking them down to be done, because it's very mentally exhausting to wake up in jail every day and you not know, what's going to happen, and just being there in the first place. So I really wish that, but this is where I say again, it's up to us as the citizens to hold the elected official accountable. And we say to them, some of this has to change. People should be allowed to have a bond if they're not a threat to themselves or to the community.
Right,
and we both know, and we know a lot of these things, like marijuana. We had so many people did 20 years for that. Now it's legal. So I'm like, are you going to go back and
not
and fix the fact that you locked people up for 20 years for marijuana? So, I just really feel like, when they did this war on drugs, back then, it really put primarily minorities, because they determine by whether it's a hard crack or powder. You get less time for powder and more time for the hard crack and stuff. And so I think that, like you said, it needs to be revisited and it needs to be redone. We shouldn't be taking people from society for life.
Right. It's definitely a case against minorities, because like you just said about the powder and the crack, they know that with the powder, it was mostly white people who were doing the powder sniffing, and the black people were smoking it and packaging it, for sale. So that's what that was. So the law is crazy, and a lot of things do need to be changed. But with that being said, with the cases that you have looked at thus far, I know you said that it mentally drains you. Has there been a day when you were like, you know what, forget it, this is too much, I've had enough, no calls today, I'm just done?
Sometimes I say that, like, at the end of the day, I'll say, you know what, after this case, I'm done. Like when I said that on Lisa's case, because Lisa's case took a lot out of me, because she could die. And she really needed the amount of chemo she needed, she wasn't getting it. So it wasn't shrinking the tumors.
Right.
And so, I would see her, and then she was sick. So she was very emotional as well. So you can't be emotional when they're emotional. So, when I was doing her case, I told myself, I was like, after this, I'm done. I'm not advocating anymore. I just want to get Lisa out, but this is just too much. And it's scary for me to feel like if they don't get out, I fail somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere I didn't do something right, or something more I could have done. That's the burden you kind of carry. Like, you feel like you got to get these people out of the situation or get the best outcome, because everyone, you're not going to get them out. You just can't, but you can get the best outcome. So if my pushing got the best outcome, then you feel like you did what you're supposed to do. So I pray all the time, and I tell God, is if you put me here to do this, then you have to help me and guide me and give me strength to figure out, how do I help this person?
We have a question, Ms. Go-Getter?
Yes. Okay, so when are you afraid when you're actually out here advocating for people and speaking against the police? In some way, are you a little nervous, like how you were just speaking about the gentleman? Were you thinking, because we don't really know, but there's a possibility that they might have set him up. So are you afraid that they can stop you or maybe set you up? Like, what goes through your mind when people are telling you about their case? What actually goes through your mind when you're trying to figure out what to do?
I will say fear. I always read the 23rd number Psalms all the time. And, you have to understand too, God has already written our journey. And it's nothing that we could do about it. And it's nothing, just sitting here and being afraid all day is not going to change anything. So to be honest with you, I've never sat and been afraid. I can only do, I'll say this, my accountability is to God at the end of the day. And that's the way I look at it. So I never really allow myself to be consumed with thoughts. My thoughts are always, I have to do everything that I can if this case is brought to me to do what I'm supposed to do. And so that's the only thing I think about.
Wow. I don't know. I think that, just like as you said, I know I would be emotional, especially with, and the burden that you have on you, it's a lot and it's heavy.
Right.
Because like you said, if something should happen that you don't want to happen, then it's like, oh man, I failed them. So that's something you got to carry around.
Exactly. And then you might possibly feel like not only did you fail that person, but maybe yourself.
Yeah, that's the feeling I always think about every day. And so if you want to, that's what I think. I don't think about anything else.
Right.
You know, I just want to make sure that I've done everything that I could. And the thing that I always say to people, one thing is, I'm not anti-police, you know, at all. I'm not anti, because I say at the end of the day, we need police. Right. I'm pro-police. You know, I have family members that are police officers. So my stand is not against the police. My stand is for justice. My stance is, let's make sure that when we are locking people away, because when people go to jail, it destroys a family.
It does. It
destroys a family. And then a lot of times people don't know too, that person is psychologically damaged in some way that they'll never be the same. I've never seen anyone do time and come out that person that they were 5 or 10 years or 15 years ago. So my stance is, let's make sure that when we are taking these steps as a justice system, let's make sure that that we're doing things the way that the people that we elected created it to be. That's my stance, not anti-prosecutor or anti-police or anything. I actually have some really good relationships with, prosecutors, because they like, okay, what you want to sit and talk about now? And no, every conversation don't get a yes, you're right. They'll just, many times I get, okay, well, we listened to you, we heard what you're saying, and we'll think about it. You know, we'll look, or we'll take a look at it. So I don't really get a lot of them feeling like I'm against them.
Right.
You know, they know that I'm just standing for, I just want it to be done right.
And fair.
Yeah, and fair. That's it.
Yeah, that's definitely it. But and I think a lot of times when you do have those conversations and when you do advocate for people, a lot of the prosecutors, I feel like they may go ahead and be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have this meeting with her because I don't want her bringing too much attention to our office.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we bring attention, a lot of stuff starts
uncovering. Yeah. And to be honest with you, that's primarily, I've had the success of just meeting with them in a private setting. Because when I first started advocating, I had another advocate in Memphis who came to me, who's been in the game a long time. He said, Marva, I'm going to tell you something. He said, the best way that you could ever advocate is give them a chance first. He said, always go to that source first. And he said, what can happen? Y'all can go behind closed doors and you guys can talk about it. And sometimes you'll get a solution. He said, sometimes you'll just get an explanation. But he was like, they'll respect you when you come to them first. So when it comes to the Commonwealth office, I actually privately only reached out to them for, I think, about 13 months, before I felt forced that I was like, oh, I'm not doing this personal, justice. If I try everything I can, I really almost, really pleaded with them in quite a few emails and letters to, let's just sit down and talk about this. Right. But I didn't have a choice anymore. I was like, I have to, but I even told them that I would. I was like, if I don't get a response after this one, I sound fortunate, I'm going to start to speak out about it.
That's right. You have to force your hand, because if you give them opportunities, you just have a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not saying give me a conversation and then I'm going to point out all your wrongs. I just want a simple conversation.
Right. Yeah.
And you can get a lot accomplished out of a simple conversation.
Exactly. And understand it. And then you can have a mutual respect, because we're not here to be best friends. We just want a mutual respect and an understanding, so that's all I look for, not for them to say, okay, it's my best friend, so I'm gonna call him tomorrow.
Hey, this such and such, I need you to get him off. No, we definitely know none of that is going on.
Oh yeah, no. So no, that's not gonna happen. Just like a conversation, and they explained to me, because it could be something that I just don't understand because I'm not a prosecutor. I'm just a country girl that went through something, and I learned the law, and I understand it. And so I want to understand from this perspective, because it doesn't look fair or it doesn't look like it's going according to what we're guaranteed, which is due process in the system. So can you explain that to me? So that's what I do.
But now let me ask you this. Being that a lot of times I'm gonna say we, because I've had family members and friends who have been incarcerated. And when they are incarcerated, a portion of us do the time with them as well.
Oh, yes.
So that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people see, even the person who have committed the crime.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, they're locking you up and we may have a little more freedom, but you know, in reality, like our mind is wondering like, what's going on with you? Or are you okay? You know, a lot is going on. So when a family reaches out to you and they say, hey, Marva, I need you to look at this. What do you tell them on the initial call?
A lot of times, to be honest, on initial call, they talk about more of how frustrated they are.
Okay.
So I let the family, like that person that's actually being there for the family member, I allow them to vent. Okay. Because I think a lot of people don't understand that even though they have a family member incarcerated, so now they've taken the responsibility of everything from that person. So whatever responsibilities they have that plus them, plus whatever they have, not to mention extra stress from going through this system of talking to people who have been kind of trained. Because keep in mind, I believe prosecutors and lawyers, they train themselves to cut their emotions off.
They have to.
You know, and yeah, you have to. And so they're talking from emotion when these lawyers and prosecutors and judges are talking from the law and just what is, or, you know. And so most of them, you listen to them vent. A lot of them message me sometimes throughout the night or something, just like, you know, I'm just feeling so down today. And you know, you have to kind of pick them up. Like, you know, sometimes you like, sis, you're going to be all right. You're going to, because it's mostly women. Right. You know, so you're like, sis, you're gonna make it. You're gonna be okay. God's gonna get you through this. This has happened for a reason, you know. So it's more a lot of encouragement to them.
So being that I know we got a question, but before we get into the question, I wanted to ask you, have you ever thought about forming a team?
Yes. Yeah, I'm actually right now in the process of doing that. So I've established a nonprofit called Vindication Solutions. And so right now we're in the process of creating a team because what we want to do is we want to go out to teach people their rights so they can just understand. Because I think if people understand what's going on through the process on their own, they will have a better relationship with the lawyer. Okay. And the process won't be so traumatizing, you know. So that and then you want to have support for the family that goes through it, because, you know, even now I still have, you know, a lot of moments. You know, I'm not the person I was 6 years ago. I was like, you know, somebody that like to have fun all the time. You know, I like to go out, and I was the one that's on the phone laughing the most. And now I'm totally opposite. I'm very, you know, my oldest son tell me that he was like, you're always to yourself, you know. So I'm always to myself, because I'm always in meditation and prayer and just asking God for peace all the time, you know, from the cases and then from just what I've gone through anyway.
Oh, Jesus. Miss Go Getter.
Okay, so you mentioned your son. Say you always to yourself. So how does your son or the rest of your family, how do they feel about, you know, what you're doing and you out there speaking against injustice or, you know, helping people? What is some of the responses or some of the feedback you've received from your family?
My children, they worry about the stress. My son tell me all the time. Well, my youngest son to say to me when I'm running out the door to, you know, go do something, he's like, I wish you just sit down and rest and stay, you know, and just take care of you today. And, you know, my older son, he's been inspired because now he's on a journey to be a lawyer. And I'm very, you know, happy about that, because I want him But I don't, as you start this journey, because I believe that's what he came into the world to be. And so I say to my son that when you become the best lawyer, because you will, because he can dispute anything. I mean, he can really debate and get you to see another side of something, and I told him, never forget the person that you're fighting for. Don't ever get caught up in it's a job and I'm gonna check it. Yeah, you balance it, but never forget the job. But I mean, they would wish that I would rest more, and because I'm advocating more than I'm doing anything, but it's hard because you don't want to say no to somebody whose family is there and they saying, I really need your help. And so it's hard to say, okay, no, because when I lay at night, I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if they experiencing what I experienced 6 years ago. So, that's what they say to me.
It's definitely, I believe God gives things to certain people, because I know, one, like I'm an emotional type person, very, very emotional. So when they're crying, I probably be doing the same thing. So, but I think you're walking in your calling, even though it is stressful. But hey, I mean, that's part of it. Yeah,
because I don't, to be honest with you, I haven't cried in years. I don't know what it is to sit down and cry, because when I go through the cases and the clients cry, I don't cry. It motivates me to say I got to get them out of this, because they feeling this pain that I felt that I know never goes away. So I never go home and cry, or I don't even go home and I don't outlet or say something to people like, I'm frustrated about this, I'm tired of this. I don't say anything. I just have people in my close circle saying, you're so invested in this. I know you need a moment for yourself, but I never like cry and all of that. I think I might need one of those, but I don't know how to do that, because I think that in this job, you can't. All you have to do is you got to be strong. And so the only thing I say about that is sometimes I tell some of the people close to me, I think you guys forget I have emotions, because I'm not a crier and I'm a woman, but I have emotions and feelings. I just think that I've learned to put them in a certain place because of the purpose and position I've chosen to go in my life.
Well, it was good talking to you. I mean, I could talk to you all day long about it, because I like law and stuff too. Like, I watch a lot of law shows, but and it, we do have many cases of injustice. And the only thing I can tell you is keep fighting. And even if you do want to cry, you cry. If you don't, you don't. But you definitely have that push and drive in you. And whatever it is that motivates you every day, then I hope that you keep that same momentum.
I will.
And continue to help people and realize that, and I know you already know this, that you're not going to be able to help everybody. But if you give your 100%, I'm sure you can lay down at night knowing that, you know what, I did what I could do.
Yeah.
So with that being said, is there anything that you would like to say that you haven't said already?
I would just like to encourage people, not just Black people, but white people, let's get out of saying, if it's not at my door, it's not my issue. But let's do more of coming together. I look back at the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement wasn't just a Black movement. The Civil Rights Movement was a unity movement. There were Jewish, there were whites, there were Blacks, there were everyone. Right. And what caused that change, which let's keep in mind, Jim Crow was a law. But what caused it to change is because of all backgrounds we came together. And so I just would like for everyone, just no matter what race, color, background, if we will come together and learn to say, when we see a problem, it's all of our problem. So we can live in a better, peaceful world. I just feel like sometimes we're losing, when I was a kid, what was fun in this world, because we adapted a mentality of not caring for our neighbor. How they say, love your neighbor, look out for your neighbor and all that. We don't look out for our neighbor. We don't look out
Half
for
the time,
everybody.
we don't even know our neighbors.
Yeah, we don't even know our neighbors and stuff. And I, with my parents where I grew up, we still know our neighbors there because that's where we grew up. And so I, if I could say anything to people, I would say, let's all come together as people and let's not look at like speaking out is not anti. That's just asking for change so we can, we can build a better world among each other.
And stop being speakers and be doers.
Yes, let's be doers and not speakers. Because somebody told me one time when I said something to them, they said sound good. So when they say sound good, that means sound good, but are you gonna do it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So let's do it.
So with that being said, we're gonna get out of here. Tune in every Thursday. We're live on YouTube as well as we Facebook, Instagram. I was about to say that we share it.
Yeah.
We share it to those platforms as well. But every Thursday, 7:00 p.m. You can catch us every Monday through Sunday at 7:00 a.m. on Power by Virginia Radio. We are on ebny.tv as well as Blackjack TV. You can hear us on all of the MP3 outlets, which are like Apple Podcasts, Google,
Spotify. Pandora.
Help me out, girl.
iHeartRadio.
Unapologetic and unfiltered. See, when we have conversation, that's what we do. So sometimes I forget.
Yeah, this is powerful.
So, but go ahead, Miss Go Get It. Tell them where they can hear us at again.
You can hear us on Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of your podcast outlets.
And that's a wrap for tonight. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
7 p.m. live. Good night.
Night, everybody.